check out our streaming schedule for this week. We've got tons of content in terms of the NFL and college football, as we're going live just about every single day this week. So make sure you hit that notification bell so you don't miss a single moment where we go live. And now, on with our feature presentation. December 29th, 2024. It's week 17 of the NFL season, and we've got a big game on our hands up at Northwest Stadium in the nation's capital between the Atlanta Falcons and the Washington Commanders. For the main team in our story, the Falcons, this is a monumental game. And not just because it's nationally televised, and not just because it's the first real test for your first-round pick, rookie quarterback Michael Penix. This game means the world in terms of your playoff status. Right now, with 2 games to go, you control your own destiny. Win this game and beat the Carolina Panthers next week, and you win the NFC South and are going to the playoffs playing legitimate January football for the first time since the 2017 season. Lose this game, and your playoff hopes are hanging on by a thread. This is a must-win game in so many ways, so you cannot afford to do anything stupid that costs your team a chance at winning. You can probably guess how that went. But before I talk about what exactly transpired, if you want to learn more about some other weird stuff that has happened throughout the history of the NFL, then this is the place for you, because we talk about all things NFL history all the time with a new video and a new live stream every single day. So if you like that sort of stuff, then be sure to hit that like button down below, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss a single video that we post on the channel. Thanks in advance for your support as we try and hit 70,000 subscribers. And here's the situation. It's a tie game with 40 seconds left, and the Falcons are inside their own 20-yard line, looking to drive down the field late and get some points before a possible overtime period. Tough situation for sure, but if you can get a big chunk play here, you're in a good spot, especially seeing as you have 2 timeouts to work with, so you can have plenty of plays available and can stop the clock if necessary. Sure enough, that's exactly what happens, as Michael Penix delivers a dart to Darnell Mooney near midfield, leading the Falcons to burn one of their 2 timeouts with 32 seconds left, and leading to the Falcons having plenty of time to work. You're actually kidding me. Are we really doing this? Are we really doing this right now? Come on. Yo, Coach Morris, you got 2 timeouts here. You got 2 timeouts. You want to use one? You want to freaking use one? Why is the clock running? Why is the clock still running?
17 seconds left. Penix again firing to Mooney. Incomplete. Trying to come out of his break.
Great, just great. I'm sure those 2 timeouts are really going to come in handy for the 2 imaginary plays you can run that require you burning a timeout with that little time left. You're really going to leave regulation with a timeout in your back pocket. This is so stupid. It's already a dumb decision, but just out of curiosity, I have to see if this comes back to bite the Falcons in the butt in any way at all.
Riley Patterson has it on the way. It's online. Is it long enough? No. Short.
Of course, Falcons gonna Falcon. Welcome to Dumb Decisions. Before I break down what happened here, this whole series is about taking an in-depth look at decisions made during games that were clearly awful from the start. This isn't something to look bad in hindsight. Rather, this is something to look awful almost immediately. These are moves where your gut instinct tells you right away that there is no way this can possibly work. And sure enough, your gut instinct was smarter than that of an NFL head coach. And for this one, we're taking a look at the mind of Atlanta Falcons head coach, Raheem Morris. There are some coaches that make the most of their second chance in the NFL. You've got your guys like Bill Belichick, Mike Shanahan, and Marv Levy. And then you've got guys like Raheem Morris, who are just as bad the second time around as they were the first time around, and showed why they were canned and were unsuccessful. Raheem Morris possibly just cost his team a spot in the playoffs, all because he has no idea how to manage the clock. He's made some baffling decisions this year that have cost the Falcons, which you can learn more about by clicking the card in the upper right corner. And he might have saved his worst one for the most important game of the season, because nothing about what he did with the timeouts here makes any logical sense whatsoever. So with that being said, let's take a look at why not calling a timeout with 32 seconds left when you've got 2 of them to play with and you're driving down the field is a really bad idea. At the end of the day, you want to get as close as possible to be able to try a walk-off field goal and to end the game right then and there. This is especially true considering the fact that your actual kicker Younghoe Koo is on injured reserve. So you have a backup kicker in there that you sign off the street in Riley Patterson. And the problem with Patterson is that he has an absolute noodle of a leg. Anyone who watched a single Jacksonville Jaguars game in 2022 could have told you that. The man may be decent when it comes to accuracy, but with distance, it's really tough. There were so many games during the 2022 season where the Jaguars went for on 4th down from that 35 to 40 yard line range because you're not punting it from there, and also because Patterson's leg was too weak where you're not trying the field goal. So where is your target line for a field goal at the end of the game? Might be the 43-yard line with an average kicker in today's NFL. Move it up a solid 8 yards for Patterson. And that really means that you need to have as much time as possible to accrue yardage and get down the field because you still need a good amount of yardage. So let's see what happens when you call a timeout with 32 seconds left, like any smart coach would do. You still have a timeout left in your back pocket. You can still afford to call a play over the middle of the field. If you take a sack or something bad happens where the receiver can't get out of bounds, you can still stop the clock and have time to regroup and reset. You still have plenty of options available at your disposal. And if we assume you need to get to the 35-yard line to have a realistic chance at a field goal with Patterson, and if we assume that the average play takes 5 seconds, you've got 6 chances to get 21 yards before having to try a field goal. That's not bad at all. That's more than doable. But when you let the clock run down like an idiot, like this man you've been watching this whole time did in Raheem Morris, guess what? You don't get that opportunity, which is a pretty big opportunity. When you let 15 seconds run off the clock for no reason and take it down to 17 seconds before calling a play, you only have 3 chances to get 21 yards before having to try a field goal. The number of plays available at your disposal, that's cut in half. This means that instead of needing to average 3.5 yards per play with your rookie quarterback, you need to average 7 yards per play. If the first down pass falls incomplete, instead of needing to average about 4 yards per play, you now need to average about 10 yards per play, 2.5 times that. And it also means that by not calling a timeout with 32 seconds left and letting it run to 17, unless you get 2 completions over the middle of the field in a 3-play stretch, guess what? You're going to be leaving with a timeout in your back pocket. You're actually not going to be able to use all 3 of your timeouts. That is asinine to me. That is like being on the $1 million question in Who Wants to Be a Millionaire and having your 50-50 lifeline available with you and just deciding not to use it even though you don't know the answer. Answering it for no reason without eliminating 2 of the choices first. It's not like you can exchange the timeouts for prizes as Dave and Buster's later on. It's not like the timeouts carry over to future games or to the overtime period. You might as well use them now, especially if they benefit you. If you can get as many plays as possible to move down the field, then get those plays. And that is especially true when there was no risk whatsoever to giving Washington the ball back with time for them to do anything, outside of the usual things that can happen in that spot. So I don't even want to hear that defense from anyone. If you call a timeout with 32 seconds left and you throw 3 incomplete passes, yes, you have to give it back to Washington. But they're getting it back deep in their own territory with 10 seconds left after the punt. They're taking a knee and they're playing for overtime. The worst thing that could have happened barring a turnover was that you were playing for overtime. And if you were going to be conservative and decide not to try and score, the time to do that was when Washington had a timeout and you were inside the 20. Because if you didn't get a first down, there actually was a chance for them to get good field position and win it in regulation. In other words, considering the time left in the game, considering where the Falcons were on the field, considering what had already happened, and considering what the Falcons needed to do, especially because of their kicker and his noodle leg, there was no risk and all reward to doing the smart thing and calling timeout with 32 seconds left. And Raheem Morris just decided not to do it, wasting 3 plays and keeping a timeout in his back pocket for reasons beyond our comprehension. Naturally, after the game, the man you've been watching this whole time, Raheem Morris, was asked about his bizarre clock management and just what he was thinking by not calling a timeout right away, making life way harder for the Falcons than it had to be at the end. And this is what he had to say. Take a listen.
Why did you take a timeout after Darnell's catch first down?
Probably could have. I thought we can get to the line of scrimmage with our operation, be a little bit faster there, get him there without going on the fast and our ball, try to save that timeout. In hindsight, could have been a good decision or a better decision to take that timeout, but I wanted to have the opportunity to move up there. So, like, you can always second guess those things. You can always second guess those motives. You can always go back and look at it and see if you can get it snapped a little bit quicker. But I really believe we can get our operation time a little bit faster there to be able to save that timeout, still be able to click off, potentially get the pass interference, have a couple more snaps there, save the timeouts, and be able to use them there to get that field goal a little bit closer.
So let me get this straight. He didn't call the timeout because he thought his team could get to the line quicker and snap the ball. And also didn't call the timeout because he wanted to use them later to get a little bit closer. There is so much wrong with this logic that it genuinely makes me wonder if he was watching the same game that we were. First off, enough with the hindsight and second-guessing crap. We were all screaming about this the moment it happened. Everyone knew right away that this was a bad decision. If you run with scissors over a wet floor full of Legos and you get hurt, you can't say, well, it's easy for you to say in hindsight that this was the wrong move. No, we were all saying at the moment you decided to run with scissors over a wet floor full of Legos. To say that and criticize people for wondering in hindsight what you were thinking on a decision that was very obviously the wrong one the moment it happened shows a severe lack of maturity and shows that you might not be qualified to handle high-pressure situations and the responsibilities that come with being a head coach. But when it comes to using them later to get closer, how? You had two. If you had one timeout, okay, I get it. Not saying I agree with it, but it's at least more defensible. One timeout with 17 seconds versus no timeouts with 32 seconds with a rookie quarterback who had gone down a few times today and might not be able to run the 2-minute offense all that efficiently is at the very least a debate. I don't agree with it, but it's a debate. But I promise you, you are not going to have enough time to use all two of those timeouts with the clock running. Saying you save your timeouts to use them later in the quarter potentially is like saying that you save your 2 get-out-of-homework passes in a class for the last day of school. And I love how the logic for not calling timeout is because you thought you could get to the line quicker. Well, guess what, Coach Morris? You didn't. You freaking didn't. And you could see that because you have eyes. So the moment you saw that the tempo wasn't quite what you wanted it to be, which you had to expect seeing as you got a guy making his second career start being thrust into this role, you know what you do? That's right, you call a timeout. It's the same logic that applies when you call a timeout as the play clock's about to expire. You want to save it because you think you can get it off before it hits 0. But then you use your eyes and see that it's not happening. So you react. You don't just sit back and do nothing and act like a statue. You freaking do something. And Raheem Morris did nothing. I think that's the most frustrating part about all this. Throughout the entire game, it's not even that Morris made the wrong decisions. He just did nothing. He just stood there and didn't do anything. What a head coach you've got there, Atlanta. You really nailed that hire. And when it comes to what happened in the game between these two teams behind me right here, this is only the tip of the iceberg. I could go on about the awful clock management that Raheem Morris had at the end of the first half, where he also left the half driving down the field with a timeout in his back pocket, which meant that the Falcons on third down had to go to the end zone instead of trying to get the first down. So it was really 3rd and 22 instead of 3rd and 5 or whatever it was. And the awful clock management in overtime when the Falcons needed to drive down the field to get a touchdown, so he wanted as much time as possible to be able to do that. A tie wasn't going to be good enough for them, and yet Raheem Morris did not burn any of his 2 timeouts as Washington was taking the clock down, meaning that Atlanta, if they got a stop on a field goal, would have had only 2 minutes to drive down the field instead of 4 minutes. It was just baffling how badly Raheem Morris coached this game and how awful he's been for the Falcons this season. They have too much talent on paper to be as mediocre as they are, and it starts with the head coach because Raheem Morris is not cut out for this. He wasn't cut out for this in Tampa Bay a decade ago, and he's certainly not cut out for it now. So what did we learn from all of this? If the clock is winding down in a 1-minute drill situation and you have multiple timeouts, then take one of them. You have nothing to lose. If you want to maximize the number of plays available at your disposal to get down the field and drive for points, then you cannot save timeouts and keep them in your back pocket. Call them. You can't use them at any other point, so you might as well use them now if you're trying to win the game and have a good chance to do so. If you think you can use all of your timeouts in a quick stretch and that it's worth it, especially when that option cuts the number of plays available to you in half, then you need to reevaluate how you coach a football game and manage an operation. And if you're leaving a half with timeouts in your back pocket after a 1-minute drill situation because you couldn't get closer to your target line, and it's entirely your own doing, then you are not fit to be leading a team. It is the most basic clock management skill in the world, and you failed. Plain and simple, you failed. Because when all these elements are in play, you can't exactly be surprised when this play backfires. Talk about a dumb decision. Be sure to like and subscribe if you have not done so already, as it helps the channel out a lot. And check out my other channels, JG8 for the history of college football, JG7 for the history of baseball, and JG9 News, where we talk about all things happening in the NFL. Join me every Wednesday night at 8 p.m. Eastern, where we'll play live NFL trivia for cash prizes. And make sure to join me live, as we're on stream just about every single day. And thanks to all our Patreon members and our YouTube members for helping out the channel. See how you become a member and show your support financially in the description down below.